welcome to the Notts TV debate for the month of May. I'm Frances Finn, and as ever, I bring you three local characters, all passionate about Nottinghamshire, all with, I hope, very different views on the news. Let's meet them. Say hello to Christine Bacon, retired local journalist from Mansfield. Webb Freckingham co-owns Nottingham's famous cheese shop in the city centre. Welcome, Webb. And Sarah Manton is a designer maker based in Sneinton Market. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming. We've got a lot to talk about today. And my first question is one about politics, and that is why we are seeing reform on the rise. Now, in the recent elections, you'll know that Reform now has a new Member of Parliament. They overturned a huge Labour majority up in Runcorn. They've taken many local council seats, and over in Lincolnshire, they now have a Reform mayor. So, what's going on? What are your thoughts? Let's start with you, Christine. What do you think they've got going for them, Reform?
Well, I think to start with, there's local, these sorts of elections, there's also backlash at the reigning government, and I think that's part of it. The other thing, though, I do think Nigel Farage is very charismatic, isn't he? I think people like him. He says the right things, not always, but I just think people like him, and I think they're fresh, they're new. People are very disappointed with both the Labour and Conservative. He's the alternative.
Why do you think people are disappointed with Labour?
Oh, for goodness sake, I'm started.
I'm genuinely interested because they won the last election with a massive majority in the House of Commons.
Look, when they first got in, what did they do with the fuel allowance? It was absolutely the fuel allowance. It was shocking. I mean, and why did they not backtrack on it? I know they would have had that moment of, there'd been a U-turn, but it would have done them some good, because apparently on the doorsteps of these local elections, a lot of the people have brought up the winter fuel thing. And I think it's just terrible. I think they kick on private schools. I think, they've just done so many things that are so sad. I mean, what have they done that's been any good?
Well, perhaps, Sarah, you want to come in there a little bit, because I know perhaps Labour is a party that has had your support over the years. Go on then. Why is Reform beating Labour, though, in so many areas?
I'll make no bones about it. I'm definitely more left of field than most, I'd say. But I'm about humanity, and I don't think some of the decisions they've made have been about caring for the humans that are in this country. I also understand, though, because I'm not an idiot, there is a massive, massive, massive debt of money that has to be repaid, resettled. Those budgets have got to be balanced for the good of everybody. And there are, and I'm including very close relatives in this, some pensioners who have more money than, quite a lot of the population put together. So it's not necessary for everybody. They probably could have nuanced it much more if it's about the fuel allowance. But I think as far as the Reform Party are concerned, I think people are looking for an alternative. And I think it's a very, very simplistic approach to say, we're going to make everything better. It's all going to be fine. We'll take our country back, without any policies or any seeming actions to back it up.
Well, they have a very strong policy to bring net migration down to zero, don't they? Which seems to be playing quite well.
People like saying, I want to bring it down to zero, that's fine. Everyone's saying they want to bring it down to zero. It's how you go about it.
I don't think they are quite as clearly, because the argument is that we do need
migrant labour. Even down, how do you do that, if that's the thing? But also, exactly as you said, we need migrants in this country. The NHS would absolutely fail without migrants in this country.
Fortune, aren't they?
Who are they? Who are they?
These migrants.
Which migrants?
Well, the people that come over in the boats and get put in hotels.
But they're asylum seekers, aren't they? We're talking about legal migration too, aren't we, with Reform? Perhaps that's another issue as well, which we'll talk about in a second. Go on. Say again.
I've got no qualms about legal migration. I think that's fine. Not a problem. Yes, we do need the workers. We do need the people.
To the tune of how many, though?
People coming over on boats.
But the proportion.
They're being trafficked.
Now, this is interesting.
So there's somebody earning massive money to get these people here.
Is your perception that the numbers of people coming in the small boats is on a par or getting somewhere near the number that are here legally? Do you think that's the general perception?
There's no figures to tell us.
Yes, there are. I mean, in the year, I think the 23-24 figures were small boats were something around 30,000, whereas the legal numbers of people coming into this country were somewhere nearer to 900,000.
Yes.
So, and those are the people that are here because they've come to work and have been granted work visas, or they've been come to study, and they're dependents of people that have come to study. Yeah. So, I'm just raising this with you because it's an interesting perception,
people,
isn't it?
The small boats people into
Reform,
a city, you wouldn't notice them. You genuinely wouldn't notice them. It's less than the students that come to this city every year.
There is a cost
There is
involved.
absolutely a cost involved.
There is a cost involved, isn't there?
This is the
That's your
problem.
point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But
You know, and we're taking money off our old generation and businesses and everything that is getting higher taxes. We're paying more and more and more, and the actual voters see this as an alternative to it.
So what has Reform said anything about how it would tackle the small
Nobody
boats
knows
crisis
how they're going to do
that
it.
you
Let's be
believe
honest.
We don't
is
know.
You
better?
know, we don't know any policies.
They've got
It's
the
like
ambition
anything,
is to do
but
it, but we don't quite know how they're going to
Because
do it.
the ambition is
smoke
there
and
from
mirrors
all
on a
the
lot of
parties.
it.
I mean, the Conservatives obviously went down the deterrent route with Rwanda. The Labour Party didn't say a great deal except smashing the gangs. We heard that a lot from Keir
But
Starmer,
that's
didn't
not
we?
happened.
Well, it's a very complex network, isn't it, out there, and quite a difficult one to smash. And Reform, I think what are they talking about? Sending people back at source. I'm not actually all that clear on what Reform
I
is
don't think
saying.
any of us are, really.
So how is it that, so this is my question really, how is it that the general public, those that have voted for Reform in these elections, how is it they think Reform is going to solve this in a way that the others aren't?
It's something else, isn't it?
different,
I have got to the stage now where, and I did this some years ago, we shouldn't have a two-party government in this country. We should have much more of a mix. We should have different voices. It shouldn't just go ping-ponging back
that's
between
Reform.
and that
exactly.
people have found reform.
They
But
might be the next major
the
party.
Green Party have had exactly the same number of MPs. They get zero airtime. They're not invited onto things. They're not Nigel Farage. He is basically look at me, in the same way as Donald Trump is.
Yeah.
There isn't anybody in the Green Party that is like that, and so it's not attractive to the media. What the media need to be doing is talking about much more wide views, not just polarising people backwards and forwards, or people with no message.
You've laid it at the door of the media there, but you could also say that the Green Party leading figures need to up their game when it comes to presenting well, saying things that people can relate to,
the table.
saying it in a way that people can champion, like Nigel Farage seems to be someone that cuts through.
I think it's fresh, I think it's new, and I think people are buying
But it
into
doesn't
that.
say anything.
Well, no, but
It
that's
just
what.
says
Yeah, but what's
your
what
life's
people are
gonna be
buying
better
into.
if you do
you know,
this.
let's be honest. The Greens, they're never going to take over the world because it's not going to happen. You know,
You say
and that's
that,
the problem.
they've got the same number of
I'm surprised
MPs
it
as
has
the Reform
Reform.
Party.
Yeah, but we're talking about they've been going
They've
for
got
years and years
policies.
and years,
Yeah.
and they've got 5 MPs.
Yes, but the Labour Party,
So it doesn't really matter,
Labour Party
does
and
it?
the Conservatives have been going for
Let's be
hundreds
honest.
of years, as in one form or another.
We're the only country that's buying into this green revolution.
No,
you
we're
know?
not. We're
Russia's
really
not.
not.
China's not. Australia's
Absolutely
not.
not.
South America's not.
That's a
You
question
know?
we'll come on
say
to.
that I am
America's
surprised
not.
that Kemi Badenoch has not made more of an impact because she clearly hasn't. Has she,
She's
at
a
the moment?
terrible, terrible human being. That's
Wow.
the only opinion of myself.
That's your opinion.
Not the opinion of this,
say what you think.
group.
I think she's not here to defend herself.
I'd be
She
happy
is
to speak to her
the
about
person
it.
that the Conservative Party members voted for. Now, just back then, interestingly, to Reform, if we can just finally then try and nail down what the other parties are not saying, they're not offering. Is it that a vote for Reform is basically a vote against Labour and the Tories, or is Reform standing for something that actually we've been too afraid as a nation to talk about properly, which is our country has changed. This rhetoric around we want our country back. Back to what? Back from what? We're not quite sure. But there is perhaps something about if we don't ever allow and bring out these conversations about immigration, then things like this, when I say this, there is pushback, isn't there? And suddenly people that have been left-wing for years and years vote for a much further right party.
I think we do want something different here. That's the problem. I mean, Conservatives let us down, and then Labour come in, and it was horrendous. I mean, all the freebies, all the free tickets to Taylor Swift, the new glasses, and then they do, the winter fuel allowance, and then I think
Yeah, it's like, what's it? Okay, I'll buy you dresses and clothes to wear, but we're taking that £200 off you.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. It's
Yeah.
double standards.
It's also-
And Labour has
we've just
always been a
forgotten
party for the working man.
It's not
allegedly.
anymore. It's not
It's
anymore.
not
And
anymore.
it's proved that
They're all selfish.
middle
and
class
it's all
people
about
are voting
themselves.
Labour and working class people are voting reform, and that's the way it started to go, because it's about, you know, how is this affecting me as a citizen of this country on a day-to-day basis. But the way it's reported is very much like sports. So it's basically, oh, Labour are winning this, so Reform needs to do this to get that win. It's not about how the country is being run anymore, or how the citizens are being treated. It's who's winning, who's getting the points over so-and-so else. Somebody said this, so you need to say that. And it shouldn't be being reported in that way, and people shouldn't be behaving in that way, scoring points off each other.
We came on here before the election last year, and my biggest fear was taxes going up, right? We don't need to look back you only have to look back in history.
Yes,
and that's happened.
No, but this is the thing as well.
And for a business,
I'm not here to speak for the Labour Party, but just for balance, it has repeatedly said, because it will not put your income taxes up, it is looking for other ways to fill that great big black hole it describes as being there in the budget of £22 billion, and it's growing. So therefore, it's having to do things like increase national insurance, take away the winter fuel allowance, because it's not going to be putting up income tax. Maybe, Sarah, just finally, income tax raises is what's needed.
I think it's a difficult one. I think if it's a small amount, then yes, it probably is. But you've got the balance of the economy as well. If people haven't got money in their pockets, they're not going to buy cheese. You know, they're not going to go out and have the money to spend. So it's a really difficult balancing act between stinging businesses and stinging individuals.
Why did you put the minimum wage up? To what benefit?
So that people can live. Is it that?
No, but it's not benefit to the government. It's people who are employing these under 18s.
Absolutely.
They stop employing them when they get to 18.
Home until
I'm going to press that big
big
pause button because we're going to go into a break, and then we'll come back and talk about other things here on a sparky Notts TV debate. Don't go away. Hello, welcome back. It's the Notts TV debate with me, Francis Finn, and three guests, all passionate about what's going on here in Nottinghamshire. We're talking about the news, the things that are affecting us, and wider matters with Christine Bacon, Webb Freckingham, and Sarah Mountain. Now, let me ask you your thoughts on e-scooters. Now, we had them, didn't we, in Nottingham for a while. Then they disappeared. We got the bikes. Well, now the scooters are back under a scheme called DOT. Now, the law says that you're only allowed to use an electric scooter on our pathways and roads if they are part of a licensed scheme like DOT. How safe are they, though? How do you feel about them all? And I raise this because in Nottingham, tragically, a few weeks ago, there was a death on Crown Island, a 43-year-old man. He was a father, a son, and he lost his life in a collision in the traffic there. There's no doubt you're vulnerable, aren't you, when you're on a scooter?
Yes.
But you're vulnerable on a bicycle, a motorbike, in a car. We want to get around, don't we, in a green way. Mm-hmm. So clearly there's some backing for it. Webb, what are your thoughts?
Walk, if that's what you want to do. What do you need an e-scooter for?
But it's a lot faster on an e-scooter.
Yeah, but they're
You
lethal.
can't walk everywhere.
They're lethal.
They are.
You can't
Yeah,
hear them. People come up behind you, swerve round you. People have been hit by them. They're just an absolute menace on the streets of Nottingham. They're just left lying around. People trip over.
You know, the bikes are even worse. They actually just drop them. They just leave. They certainly do when I'm in London. And I just left on the pavement. My husband is blind, and it's
That's what
horrendous.
I was going to say. There was a lady coming down the other day, and she nearly tripped up over it because it'd just been left lying on the pavement.
Yeah.
You know, it's no consideration. If you want to use that, fine. But when you finish with it, put it where it should be.
Absolutely.
But you're supposed to. And that's the bottom
Yeah,
line.
but how do you police it?
How do you police it exactly?
Exactly. If you don't have any kind of policing of it, be it the companies that are taking the money to do these things, I know they come back and they charge up the batteries and they put them back in place and everything, but the people of Nottingham are not coping with this well, I'm going to say. So when you take them back, you're supposed to take a photograph of where you positioned it in the little points, so that you
scooters,
can,
not the
it's the
bike.
scooters and the bikes, to release your card. But what happens is, and this is, I'm going to say, you can see this on a daily basis in Centre Market, is children come, teenagers come, and they're pushing them around, and you can hear around Nottingham the beep, 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 beep of people riding things without paying for it. So they're riding it, the electric's not working, but you can still move them, and they're throwing them in ditches, and they're throwing them across the road and in a dangerous way. But I completely agree with my friends here. People are riding them in a completely irresponsible way, and people with private e-scooters Obviously, there are some people that are completely responsible, but there are a lot of people who are masking up, putting balaclavas on and riding through the traffic and onto the pavements exactly as they see fit in a dangerous way.
Yeah, I mean, before we go on, I should specify that the death was of a man who wasn't riding a scooter as part of the DOT scheme, just to separate those things out.
It was a private scooter.
Yes, but we'll leave that, if you don't mind, for the details. Obviously, there's a grieving family involved.
Yeah.
But,
so.
I mean, that kind of is the point. We don't want more grieving families. But, I mean, is it the case, though, that it's not that it's the scooters themselves that are dangerous? It's, as you've alluded to, it's the way we're running the schemes.
Yeah.
How should Nottingham be running the scheme then, if they're going to avoid what's been going on?
Don't bother, get rid of it like we did before.
Why do we have to
Simple.
provide them? As I don't
Simple,
really
simple,
understand is
simple.
why are we providing them? And I know we had Boris bikes, and that was all to get people, stop from driving cars. But bikes taken over on bike lanes, and I find it really
not.
annoys me.
Because it's
That one
agreed.
on London Road, if I've seen 5 bikes on it in the last 10 years, last 4 years, that's it.
No, I'm not saying that.
It's
They're not
pointless.
there, but
Waste
they
of
are
money.
creating the bike lanes. And
Yeah.
when we're in London,
But nobody uses them.
I know, but
They
they're there.
don't use them because they're not joined up. It's
Are you
really
talking about Castle
hard.
Boulevard?
There's lots of money that's been spent,
Yeah.
and it is money that's
Nottingham,
come into
London
Nottingham.
Road is a prime example. We've cut it down to 2 lanes
Yes.
from 3 lanes.
Exactly,
Right?
for bikes.
So the traffic now, you can guarantee most mornings you queue from Trent Bridge for 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get into
But
Nottingham.
that's the key.
Whereas
If you
before,
had
we
another
never
way of getting
did.
into the city-
We'd be straight into Nottingham.
You wouldn't be straight into Nottingham. It's always been a queue. It's always been a massive, massive queue.
Well, it
but
hasn't,
in other
because
countries,
I drive it every day.
Yeah, but I
So
did too.
Why are you saying that?
Because I did
if I
too.
can come in.
It's
From
worse
Mountain.
now than it was before.
Okay.
So
the
you think we
change-
should just stop them?
But in other
Yeah.
countries,
Yeah. Right, go on.
where you've got cycle lanes, dedicated cycle lanes, and you make the way people move around the city centre, the very tight city centre, that it's a way you can do it on foot, you can do it with bicycles, you can do it with e-scooters and bikes that are separated in a separate lane. It works. It absolutely works.
You
We are
surely got to
twins
see
with
that bike
Ghent.
lanes are ridiculous.
They're not
They are,
ridiculous.
because
Of
they
course they
stop.
are.
They
If
stop.
you've been on a bicycle in a city centre, it is the most terrifying thing in the
Yeah, I'm
world.
just-
If you
I'm
can be
just saying,
slightly
when I
separated,
visited,
it's
they've
safer.
They've actually taken out one of the lanes.
Yes.
So the emergency
want to fuel cars
services are
in the
stuck
city
behind
centre.
buses.
But that's never going to
Let
happen.
me bring in then, I think, the wider vision of those that want these cycle lanes. It's to get us out of the cars. It's to get us onto the cycle
Yeah, but
lanes.
But it's
everybody's not going to start and ride a bike. People my age don't just suddenly start riding a bike.
Everybody though, Christine.
It just needs to be a few more to get the traffic off the roads and to bring
Let's
down
spend
the air
millions
pollution.
on these bike lanes. They're
Hey,
well worth
that's
the money. Don't
absolutely
matter about the
good.
state of the roads. Don't matter about things. But the
yeah.
them
You should
bike
co-
lanes,
You should
fantastic
come
if
to
you
West
drive
Knox,
it.
to West Knox College in Manchester. There's a bike lane outside there, and it goes nowhere. So what's the point of this bike
But
lane?
this is another question, isn't it? So we've gone slightly
Hilarious.
off track here about the e-scooters, but it's part of a bigger thing, isn't it? And at the moment, we should say it is illegal to ride an e-scooter on any pavement unless that pavement happens to be doubling up as a cycle lane. So you shouldn't be doing that anyway. So the cycle lanes are there for e-scooter riders as well. So hence your debate then about whether they're safe or not. Can you ever then, do you think, have an integrated cycle network in Nottingham, given the fact that our city was built without cycle lanes in mind?
But so
Is it just
many-
that more needs to be put in, or do you think physically our city just, you can't have it?
I think the planning of it needs to happen. So not just, like roads that go nowhere. So the cycle lanes that go
look at the
nowhere.
planning that have done it.
Oh, absolutely. But basically making actual cycle paths that go round, and I'm talking about cycles for use by scooters as well, that go round the city, and there's a way to find your way round. And people should be instructed that those are the cycle lanes to use. And if you are riding on the pavement, or if you're riding in an irrational way, then you don't get the privilege of doing it. That's the bottom
All right,
line.
well, interesting. I think a mixed panel here.
Right.
E-scooters are dangerous, but let's try to make them safer. Better cycle lanes, but
Get
not if they get rid of
Get rid of it.
space for
Waste of
cars.
time.
Right, all right. Let's not pick over it again. Now, maybe you've been in one of those cycle lanes and you've had to say your prayers. Admire this segue, please. You've had to say your prayers to keep safe. Is faith back in fashion? Now, sadly, we've seen the death of Pope Francis. But did you see how many hundreds of thousands turned out for his funeral in Rome? And I was a lucky person and managed to be part of the throng covering it for the media. It was quite something. And to see all those people who really loved the Pope, he was someone, I think, that set an example in a different way by the way he lived his life. Now, why is this relevant? There's been a survey of faith and church attendance in the United Kingdom. And what do you make of this? It's been held by YouGov. Church attendance is up, the biggest growth being among young men. So in 2018, around 4% of 18 to 24-year-olds said they attended church at least once a month. Now, that's gone up to 16%, so it has quadrupled. Young men have increased from 4% to 21%. And the Catholic Church is seeing the biggest rise. What's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on, Webb?
I just can't believe it. Young men, what they're doing on a Sunday morning, nursing a hangover or going out and playing football. There's something wrong going to church, sorry.
I'm putting it in a pretty much the same place as the Reform Party. I'm really sorry, I don't mean that in a rude way. But I think people are looking for an answer. I think there's a need to be led. And it is that there are potentially answers. I don't know how many people were in that survey or whether it was the same people
2,000.
that were surveyed. Okay, so that's not necessarily a representative sample of West Bridgford, let alone the country. It's not going to really give us a completely honest view, but I do genuinely believe that there is a need at the moment for people to have somebody to follow and to faith,
something to believe in.
Many of my friends are made much stronger by going through really, really troubling times by the fact they've got something to lean on, and it's faith.
And what, you know, so many people in prisons actually turn to God, don't they?
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought. Why do they do that? Look, I know you'll have an answer to that.
I just find it quite amusing that we turn to something that, you know, it's the best storybook in the world. You know, I'd love to know the author of the Bible, because he must have made a killing. Because, you know what I mean, all these stories are fantastic. You know, Jesus, feeding the 5,000.
Yeah.
Turning
water into wine.
Turning water into wine. That's the only good thing he's ever done. I will say that, because you know what I mean. I want him to come and do it for me, but sadly, it's not happened.
I don't know. You never know. Don't say never. So Christine, I know that you have belonged to a church for many years, and can you then help us understand at times like this? I mean, a lot has been made of the pandemic. Mental health, we've got a mental health crisis, haven't we, among younger people? The idea, perhaps, that there is more than just what you can see and touch, that there is a hope that is beyond it. Do you think that's where this comes from?
I mean, I work with the homeless on Wednesday mornings, and I work at the back of our church, and more of them are coming into church, and I think they do need something. They need care. They need care.
They need people
and
to
if they have
actually see
faith,
them.
and I think they're grateful for the help that we give them in the church.
Do you think also with churches, and I suppose it's not just churches, but there is community?
It's a spiritualism as well. It's a I'm not talking necessarily woo-woo spiritualism, but that sense of belonging, that sense of because I was up a hill, Laxton Hill, yesterday at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch the sunrise, and I went, and it was the Rattlejack Morris side, and there were a lot of people there who were just marvelling at nature and listening to birdsong and enjoying each other's company.
It is amazing.
It was absolutely beautiful, and it wasn't faith as in what we're talking about,
It's
church
faith,
faith, organised faith, exactly,
something bigger than just us.
and you do feel
it's a sort of faith that
massive.
all these things are growing,
and it happens.
It
All right.
happens.
Again, we're running out of time in this part of the Notts TV debate, but we'll come back in a few minutes and talk about whether we should scrap net zero. Welcome back. I'm Frances Finn. This is the Notts TV debate. We pick topics from the news locally and around the world sometimes, and we give the Nottinghamshire treatment thanks to our three panellists, Christine Bacon, Webb Freckingham and Sarah Manton. So now I want to talk about something that affects each of us, really. I'm talking about net zero and the fact that the government wants to achieve net zero by 2050. That means basically we don't want to be putting any more carbon into the atmosphere through things like burning fossil fuels. And so you'll know about the wind farms, the solar farms, cutting back on gas as well, and hopefully encouraging more electric vehicles. Now, this doesn't come without inconvenience or cost, of course, and requires more investment, says the government. But this is why I'm asking now. Former Labour Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair says the target of net zero is irrational and is asking too much of ordinary people. He says limiting fossil fuel production and energy consumption is doomed to fail. And he says voters feel that global impact of it here in the UK is minimal. So it's too much to ask of us. We should be allowed to drive our diesel vehicles around. We should be able to keep hold of our gas hobs and not be forced into those awful induction ceramic gizmos.
Let's be honest, we're just going into summertime, right? So what's everybody do? Fire up the barbecue. So they're going to tell us now we're not allowed to have a gas barbecue. We're not allowed to have this. We're not allowed to do that. Half the world still cook on open fires. And we're worried about what our little
open
teeny
probably
island
fueled by wood forest from the
absolute
from the forest, not dug
poppycock.
out of the ground.
We're not talking about barbecue.
I've got a friend, friend of mine's got a biofuels place, right?
Yeah.
He said, and the government are sending him container loads of wood chip from South America. He goes, it's greenwashing, but it's okay because the government are doing it.
But that's the problem. The
And
fundamental
it's
things
the
are not being
biggest con
answered.
in the
It's not
world.
about the individuals. It's not about you and I doing things. It's about putting pressure onto big organisations to make differences. And they can. They absolutely can. It's all about profit margins. It's always all about profit margins.
I just think this...
But until we get to the stage where people realise we can't eat money, you know, the planet is just heating up and heating up and heating up. It's going to have a tipping point and it won't be livable. If it's in 100 years' time,
David Bellamy said,
it shouldn't be.
it's the world being the world. It's poppycock,
David
I think.
Bellamy is
right?
dead.
Yes, he is now. But they banned him off telly because he didn't go with
But
the
David
agenda.
Attenborough is still alive. He's
Yeah,
99
because he
years
went
old.
with the agenda.
And
Everybody
no,
believes it.
he is literally
It's
just released
absolutely-
something that says not
Just
this.
a moment.
So
Okay.
if the dinosaurs have had a bag for life, they'd still be here. Rubbish.
That's not what I'm talking about, though, is it?
That's
Well, it is.
the quote from this episode. So just to pause there. So Webb, clearly, are you a human-induced climate change denier?
I just don't think it's going to solve any problem.
Donald Trump is.
There's too many people in the world for a start. We breathe out carbon.
It's just that we're just
And we
a
want to
small
cook
part
carbon.
of the world, aren't we?
It's absolute
We're such a small
poppycock.
part of the world to be
But we
doing.
are in the world,
I'm going to
Christine.
reframe.
We
I'm
are
going to
in the
reframe
world.
this. Then I'm going to reframe this. Otherwise, you know, this is such a huge topic.
Yeah,
We'll
of
never get to the bottom of it. Do you agree that we should be doing all we can as individuals to limit our carbon footprint? So, if there's an alternative to shoving what we know is a lot of carbon into the atmosphere, shouldn't we be choosing a lower carbon alternative?
Well, isn't that what the bikes and scooters are for?
Exactly. And so things like, you know, more wind farms, because this affects local people, because you might have a planning application for a solar farm in a few fields away from your home.
Yeah.
You're either going to say,
Well,
yep, bring it on because
no.
this is what we need, or you're going to object.
The answer to it is every new house that is built in this country from now on has solar panels on its roof. Let's not dig up fields that we can grow crops and be sustainable and give the farmers something to actually earn money from that's not turning a field into a wind farm or solar panels, making it look ugly. Let's make
this is
sense.
all-
All
this is
these
all
brown
part of
sites, they should have solar
100%.
panels on, not green fields. It's absolute ridiculous.
There's so
Ed
many
Miliband,
opportunities.
what a
I
joke
know,
that
there's
bloke
so many
is.
opportunities
it is a
to put them
disaster.
onto industrial buildings. You know, we could be making little power stations out of industrial unit
I don't think we
sites.
should be forced into having
I
electric
think,
cars.
and in defence of what you just said about Ed Miliband, he would say that previous governments and local councils have dragged their feet and they have let the NIMBY culture, not in my backyard, dictate. So a small minority of wealthy rural people are dictating the terms for the wider majority. And why this matters for some
Why
of
has
us
it got to be
is
rural?
energy security. So for instance,
Yeah,
we've
so
seen...
we buy it from Norway.
So we want to generate our own energy. And that means seizing opportunities that
But we are
there.
an island. It is a windy and water-based place, right around the edges. And I think it is Orkney. I'm sorry if I'm incorrect, but I think Orkney are now producing more energy than they consume on their island. They're actually selling it back into Scotland because they're running the ferries and they're powering all of their buildings with wind and water. And you kind of think,
So
well, scaling that up. Yeah. They're scaling it
and
up.
here's the thing, that's a great, thing that they're doing. And if we didn't have a target, let's say by 2050 to achieve this net zero, would people just, there would be no incentive, would there? It would take forever.
We are completely target
There would be no
driven. We're
motivation.
completely target
so
driven.
do we not need that target then?
Yes.
No.
You need to aim
Pointless.
for something. It's not pointless at all. You need to aim for something.
China building power stations.
But why
coal
you give
power
up?
stations.
You give up because China is too big. Is that what
It's
you're
no,
saying?
I'm not saying that, but
What's
hang
he
on a
saying
minute.
then? What's he
could
saying?
all-
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
bit, which is
India, China,
If you're just saying
South
words,
Africa,
what about them?
they're all building coal-fired power stations.
Right.
Yeah, so we can't.
So we just give up.
But that's not it. It's not about that. So they turn out more carbon than what we can do in 200 years.
But
in
if
one
you look
year.
at
so
lot of
what's the point
Scandinavia,
of
a lot
us?
of
What is the
Scandinavia
point of
is
us
doing
wasting
completely
money,
the opposite.
hand over fist?
We're not wasting money. What
Really?
we're not doing, we shouldn't be drilling for more oil or fracking or doing any
No,
of
of
those
course
sorts
we
of
shouldn't.
things.
That'll save
We've got
us money.
alternatives.
Bring
It
down
won't
bring down
save us
energy
money.
prices. Businesses prosper because energy is lower. Everybody's happy about it. What
But
did they say?
if you're in,
We're going to take £300 off your energy
if you're
bill.
in an industrial
No, you haven't.
building
You've
that you
put
put
up
solar
£300.
panels on, potentially you could be
Clown.
zero
You
yourself.
absolute clown.
I love the passion here. But we do need to talk one at a time. Christine, a final word from you on this. Do you think that if we can make a difference, we can take responsibility for ourselves? The Chinese, they will be the Chinese, but we need to take responsibility
I think
for
we've
our
got
energy.
to be seen to be sensible and to be doing something. My point is that we can only do very little because, as I keep saying, we are a small part of the world. It's China and India that have got to do more. But I don't like the electric cars, and I don't want to be forced into having an electric car. I don't know whether you think that's right or wrong, but electric cars are dangerous for
We
blind
haven't
people.
got the infrastructure in this country to everybody have electric cars. It's
I
not
know,
a
but
thing.
we were told we'd all got to have them by a certain...
It's a lie. I'm over lie.
Okay, on
Tony
that,
Blair
let's
told us to buy diesel.
pause there because I want to move us on. I want to talk about private schools. Now, there are a fair few here in Nottinghamshire, fee-paying schools. Nottingham High was in the news because it's saying that it's cutting bursaries for poorer students because it can no longer afford to subsidise them. Why? The government is removing the VAT exemption. Schools like that not considered charities, therefore its tax bill is up. Same for all private schools. Is that the right way forward?
No.
The government needs more money. Christine?
It's just envy and jealousy on the Labour Party. I think it's spiteful. I think it's absolutely awful. Some of them have already closed, and if the children going to a private school, it means it's keeping the numbers less in the state schools. I do think that's important, and I think it's your choice. If you want to send your child to a private school,
I agree. If you can afford to do it,
And yeah,
why
maybe
not?
the parents
Let me
should
give
pay
you
the
a figure.
VAT and
Let
then
me
you'll
give
have
you a
things. You
figure.
won't have a problem.
The government has said it
Why
will
do we have to put VAT on everything?
This will raise, though, £1.8 billion a year by 2029-2030. That is money that is much needed in the economy, as we've heard consistently. Why shouldn't the burden fall onto the broadest shoulders, as the government has said?
That
The
money
wealthy
is coming
parents.
from the parents, the schools, right? So where's it going to go? That money is then going to comprehensive or education as it is now, right? Because there's more children not going to go to private schools, so there'll be more children in ordinary schools. If it ain't broke, why do we try and fix something?
But you know the people
Or
that send
we don't, we try
many
and
people
destroy
that
it.
send their children to private schools struggle
Yeah.
to send them. They work hard to send them to private schools. It's not just the super rich that send their kids to private schools, and it's stopping those that have worked extra to send their children to private schools.
But it isn't. You're running a business when you're running a private school. You shouldn't be VAT exempt. That's for charities, and it's not a charity. That's the bottom line, and that's
Don't
the
get me
difference.
started
That's
on
the difference.
charities.
But yeah, I mean, maybe if we funded all of our services properly, we'd be laughing.
the head of
but
a
we're
charity, 150,000 a year.
But that's
Some-
what's,
there's
exactly
something
what's
not quite
happening.
right.
Which is a fraction, actually, if reports are to be believed, of what the head teacher of Nottingham High School was earning.
What? Tell us.
Well, there are reports of between 250 and 400,000 pounds. We haven't had that official figure verified, but there's no doubt that in the private sector, and that's what they would say, they can draw in the best people. They pay better for their staff. So maybe there could be savings made within the private school sector. But interesting to hear, you think that's a crazy idea from Rachel Reeves. You think actually fair dues, and if some schools have to close, they have to close?
I don't think they have to close. I think they need to cut. They need to cut their cloth. They've closed because they've made it a business decision. They've not closed because they can't afford to run. I'm sorry, they just haven't. If you've got people being paid that level of salary, they're the people that should take the cuts first.
They're not all being paid that.
I bet there are a very, very large proportion. I'll be honest. I understand what you're saying.
Get a decent wage in the
they do,
state
but
system.
I am very much of a mind that, and I see where you're coming from, and I do think people struggling to pay to get their children what they see to be as a premium education. I would rather that the children of this country, across the board, who will be the workers and the business leaders and the charitable people of the future, were given a good education across the board. Not that some people who can afford it, and even if they scrimp and save, they can afford to give their children a private education.
It's not all, they all get a better education because
but
they're
that's
in a
what it's
private
perceived
school.
to be. That's what it's perceived to be, isn't it? That's what you would do.
It is, because I've got a friend
But
who
it's
went to
because they
private
become
school.
all-round people. It's not just
I would
the
love that
education.
for all children in our country.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. We're going to pause again there and then come back for our final part of the Notts TV debate. Should all animal testing be banned? Hello, you join us for the Notts TV debate. Lively discussion is what we're having, thanks to Christine Bacon, Webb Freckingham and Sarah Manson, all from Nottinghamshire, all with views on the news. What do you make of a proposal to ban all animal testing? Now, we don't do much of it in the UK. It's already banned if there's another way of carrying out a particular experiment. And we're talking principally about medical research here. Now, there is a petition, 200,000 people have signed it, to ban dogs from any medical research, and MPs are debating it currently. So my question, do the potential upsides of testing on animals outweigh the pain or discomfort they might endure? Because we are looking at trialling drugs, trialling treatments that will help humans. I will start with you, Christine, because I know
you all know
are passionate about your animals. Yeah,
I love animals and I love dogs. The fact that dogs are just kept there, I can't bear it, Fran. It's just awful that any animals that are tested on, they've all got feelings. It's just horrendous. There's got to be another way.
What's the alternative?
Well, I don't know. You were just saying that it's been banned. You're saying it's already been banned where there are alternatives. So you must know there's an alternative.
In the instances where there is, but there are some cases where drugs, they haven't got a non-animal alternative.
But
so,
all the
you need to get that testing done. It'd rather be on an animal than a human.
There has to be other ways, because I get a lot of products I buy say not tested on animals.
The majority, certainly, but there are still a small number of cases where we do need to involve animals, we believe.
No,
Can't give you the exact types, but what we're saying is, would you rather there be no medicines in that area? Just say, no, absolutely not. If we have to test on animals, no. Is that what you would say?
Science has moved on enough, wouldn't you, to not test on animals? Really, really would. It progresses at a rapid rate. Surely.
Things like gene therapy, I think, are tried on animals, aren't they? You can't manipulate the genes of human babies.
What do they do with these animals when they finish testing? Is that it? Gone down, put them down?
Yeah. I have no idea, Christine.
Of course it is.
Well, it's just...
Of course it is.
Most of them are rats, aren't they? Rats and mice.
There's a lot of rats and things like that.
And
used,
gene
but
therapy.
This is the difficulty.
It is very
it's things you
difficult
don't
to
name.
motive.
When it's a dog or it's a cat or a rabbit or something like that, there's an emotional link. When it's a rat or a mouse or whatever,
well.
Exactly. It's a really, really, really difficult one, particularly for me as an animal lover. And I'm old enough to remember the 80s and the Body Shop and the massive campaigns that there were against animal testing of cosmetics. And I am delighted that has now finally got to the point where, you're not dripping things into the eyes of rabbits for hours and hours and hours just to check. Exactly, but that's what I lived with as a teenager. But when I see and my father died of dementia in 2021, when I see the advances that they've made in brain surgery and the drugs that they're testing in order to try and help people with Parkinson's to stop shaking, and how unless you're going to put yourself forward, and there are a lot of charities who ask people who've got Parkinson's or Alzheimer's to put themselves forward to be a guinea pig, for want of a better word.
Literally.
Oh, literally.
Yeah.
There's a kind of the only human alternative is another mammal.
Yeah.
That's when it's really, really hard to debate, whether it's okay or not.
That's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking of, let's say, manipulating genes so that, let's say, genes for particular cancers have been traced.
Yeah.
If you can engineer the chromosomal inheritance of the next generation by removing that gene, you're going to want to practice that on an animal before, and understand it through the mechanism of an animal.
Is this where AI could be a good thing?
Well, is it worth it when it's things like beating cancer?
I just want them to find a way of not testing on animals. That's all I can say. I mean, I don't know how far they've moved on, but they must have moved on. I mean, I take my point actually when I've just said not test on animals. It is generally makeup that gets written on, so they don't need to test on animals for makeup.
I think a lot of that's not tested. We're talking about medicine, really, aren't we? We're talking about life-saving.
Yes.
drugs.
Well, interesting. Inconclusive, our panel for once today. Let's talk mammograms, staying with medical procedures. And I don't know whether you caught in the news, but there are requests from within the medical service to allow men to carry out mammograms because of the pressure on the service. So this is where, as a woman, you'd go along, you'd have an examination. There's a machine that does it, but there's a woman that helps you get into the machine. I don't mind doing that. Would that be okay?
Because it is like that.
Would it be okay if it was a man?
Slap it down on the machine.
I think the bottom line is, if they are... we've been there, Christine.
I can't wait till
We are those soldiers. We are those soldiers. The bottom line is, if they are a medically trained human being, and we have male midwives, we have
Gynecologists.
hello gynecologists.
Yes.
It's never, from my personal point of view, it's never an entirely comfortable position to be in, either from a gynecologist point of view or from a mammogram point of view, if it's somebody who hasn't got the same kit as me. But I would say, and I'm sorry for presuming, but if you've had any kind of examination as a gentleman person, and it's of an intimate nature, I'm doing the hand movements.
Thank you.
If it's a lady, that hasn't got the same equipment as you, maybe it's exactly the same feeling. So, we know, I'm sure we all know, that it is a very, very physical thing to have a mammogram. It is very uncomfortable.
It's very hands-on.
It's very hands-on.
Very hands-on.
But if it means the difference between women having mammograms or women not having mammograms because of a lack of staff, then I say bring it on.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I've never had a man do a mammogram, and I'd much prefer it's a woman. But you wouldn't open the door and say no, you're not doing it, would you?
But maybe there's an option to say no, not you.
How comfortable the lady
Of
is
course,
with it.
absolutely.
It's a bit but I have been in hospital recently. And I've been bedbound, so I have had nurses give me a bed bath.
Yes.
And it's all the carry-on bit, miniature, and all that. But not being
By
funny,
them or
it's
you?
not.
Where are we now?
Well, it's not as nice as what everybody thinks
No,
it is. You know what I mean?
No.
I think there's, it's a business medicalised environment, isn't it?
Yes.
That said, we have heard in the news of surgeons and breast surgeons being accused of things across the world. So it's not without risk. However,
That's right.
as you say, I think maybe the feeling would be if as needs must, and the need is great. But yeah, we'll see what they decide. Okay, I want to finish with a talk about something I'm holding here, a screen. In France right now, the government there is discussing whether screens, including televisions, should be banned for children under the age of 6. And this is because they have decided that based on scientific research, being too glued to a screen impairs your brain development. Not to mention, I imagine, your social development as well. Perhaps it's all linked in. That's what they're talking about with the brains. What do you think, Webb? Do you think we should go along with this?
Yeah, definitely. Take them away from children. Let them go outside. Let them play. Don't just keep sitting them in front of a screen. It doesn't solve any problem. I think it makes more problems than what it actually solves. I think there's more children now that wear glasses than ever used to be.
And actually there is a link, because I was only speaking to an optician in the last few days. He said part of the reason that you develop short-sightedness is that when you're growing up, your eyes are only looking close up. And they're not stretched out and looking at the horizon, which they need to, and that's what you do when you're outdoors. So they're saying, get outdoors, kids. It's not just for exercise, it's so you don't end up wearing glasses.
You see it on the street, you know, they're walking, looking down, and then they're walking to a lamppost, and it's like the lampost's fault for being there, you know. Look up and out, not in and down.
We're talking about changing now, though, an embedded culture, aren't we?
It's not going to go
Will it ever
away.
happen?
It's not going to go away. I mean, I have given my grandchildren a screen to watch Peppa Pig and things while I've been doing something. Never did it with my own children because the option wasn't there. And we were having this conversation. It's like, what did we do with our kids when I couldn't just stick Peppa Pig or
We just
something?
got kicked outside to play football or cricket or
Yeah,
tennis
but
or
not kicked
climb a
outside.
tree
Go
or
to the park.
Go
Go
to
to
the
the park
park.
with your
Yes, but
children.
that's-
Don't
but-
you
no, but
be
that
on
is-
your phone,
yeah, that is the
not
adult
looking at your
push
child.
That's the adult having to go to the park. It's busy people, isn't it? It's when you're busy doing
it's
something.
easy parenting.
But we've, you know,
You only have to see that out in restaurants and pubs or whatever.
because take
And what
kids
do
in
they do?
restaurants.
And all they do is give the kid a
Yeah,
bloody
well,
tablet.
you know, in a restaurant, you don't want to hear kids screaming and squawking. So
But
I
they
think
scream-
give
they
them,
scream
give
and
them,
squawk.
give
Well,
them.
they don't have to give them a
They
tablet. You
scream
can
and
give them a
exactly.
colouring book.
Can you not remember crayons
give them a
and
reading
Pizza Hut
book.
to anyone?
You know?
But my child is 27 now. But when he was little, we did. It wasn't prevalent.
That's right.
It was 27 years ago. It's not that long ago, but it's long ago. And he would colour in. He would make fun out of pans sitting on the floor and stirring pasta with spoons. And you know, although it's noisy, I wouldn't take the pans out in public. They're quite
But
noisy.
whether we like it or
But
not, it's not going to go away.
It's not
No,
going
of
to go
course
away,
it's
but
not.
it's about an attitude of going,
Yeah.
right, okay, I want my child to be able to entertain themselves. I want my child to be able to have a conversation with people at the table. I want my child to be able to see further. You know, it's all of those decisions about as a parent, not just will they shut up and keep quiet in that corner? Can I distract them with something? I mean,
Yes.
you do see it all the time.
Let's talk then about, is it too late to change your culture? It wasn't that long ago that everybody thought smoking was cool and you thought nothing of going out to a country pub, having 4 pints and driving home.
Absolutely.
We've changed that culture. Could it be possible?
No, it won't change.
But it should. It should.
You can do it. It's just that how strong the parents are. And if they don't give the child the tablet, phone, whatever, that's where it starts.
Many years of
about
not
the
happening. It's
advantages?
only in the last, say, 20 years. What are the advantages, Fran? Educate us.
Well, as you say, it is a way of stimulating your young person without having to give them any of your own time or energy. But also, we are in a technological world, and perhaps those
Definitely.
kids need to be learning those skills. However, I would say with a television, we would have missed out on Trumpton and Camberwick Green.
not saying
We
no
would have
to
missed out on
television.
Merrymonger and Midge.
Kids don't put Play School on and
Yeah,
Blue
Play
Theatre
School.
and
You've
things
never
like
been
that.
But it was
on
restricted,
anything.
yeah.
You had
One
to
at a
watch.
time.
You had to wait next week to
Yeah.
get the next episode.
Yes.
But when
You know?
you see toddlers going
And then
up
folks
to
are now going,
ovens
oh,
and
I
doing
was up till
this.
3 o'clock.
I'm going to have to say,
Bad at that.
enough.
But what's
And I'm ending your screen time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Christine Bacon, Webb Freckingham and Sarah Manton. You've been great sports on this episode of the Notts TV Debate. I'm Frances Finn and I hope we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.